All right, this is the one about the DC border pigs, also known as the U.S. border pigs. It's a fundamental maxim of common law that ignorance of the law excuses no one. This is found in the Constitution for the United States of America, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district. That's military dictatorship, boys and girls, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature, in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. So these DC criminals have gone and expanded their jurisdiction far beyond where they're supposed to be through their Supreme Court and by with their law merchant, a whole bunch of ways. Under the this is the an act to enact the Uniform Commercial Code for the District of Columbia, and for other purposes. Yeah, we know about these other purposes, and that's found at 77 Stat 630, Public Law 88-243, and in Section 9.07, location of the debtor. It says United States is located in the District of Columbia. Okay, so when they're talking about a United States citizen, they're talking about a DC citizen. And this is taken from the DC Code, which was approved March 3rd, 1901, at 31 Stat 1189. And this particular section, 1617, is at 31 Stat 1432. It says the legal estate to be the sestike use. And in the 1700s, a trust was called the use, which was short for usufruct under the Roman civil law. And so, sestike trust. This is taken from Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967, page 15641 to 15646. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the Constructive Sestike Trust of United States, Inc., under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and US, Inc. It's interesting to note that the Georgia legislature in 1957 declared the 14th and 15th Amendments void. Anyways, this is also, there's a court citation in Bolins, Northwest, probably Minnesota or something like that. 1912, every taxpayer is a sestike trust, having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. Okay, so think about it. A U.S. citizen's a taxpayer, so therefore a U.S. citizen's a sestike trust. Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or in prison not more than 3 years or both. Okay, so again, it's a felony to say you're a U.S. citizen when you know you're not. Title 26, United States Code, Section 7701. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. Okay, and under the law, a maxim of law called justum generis, then they're supposed to put all the same kinds of things together, so an individual is a fictitious entity. And then if you go to Title 5, United States Code, Section 552, AA2, the term individual means a citizen of the United States or alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. And so there is in our political system a government of the several states, and a government of the United States is distinct from the other and has citizens of its own. So you can be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. There's a clear distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship, and that's Jones versus Temmer, 1993. Citizenship of the United States does not entitle citizens to privileges and immunities as citizens of the state, since the privileges of one are not the same as the other. And this is U.S. Supreme Court. The privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the first 8 amendments to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. And that's the U.S. Supreme Court. And this is U.S. versus Valentine. The only absolute and unqualified right of a U.S. citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. In other words, U.S. citizens don't have any rights. Okay? So if you tell these D.C. border pigs that you're not a U.S. citizen, that you are a state citizen, the pigs say, we don't recognize state citizens, which is further proof that they're busy fabricating evidence of their U.S. citizen slave, and they intend to assault you, and they intend to kidnap you, and they intend to falsely imprison you. And this is National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, again, 1948. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, military dictatorship, boys and girls, through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And so the district, just anywhere these their slaves are at, they get a military courtroom that's under military dictatorship, and they can do anything they want. This is taken again from the D.C. Code. And this is at the very beginning. It says 31 Stat 1189 at 2. It says, and be it further enacted, the interpretation and constructed of said code, the following rules shall be observed. The word person shall be held to apply partnerships and corporations. And then it goes on, and it's unless some construction be unreasonable, and the reference to any officer shall include any person authorized by law to perform the duties of his office. Okay, so therefore, it's talking about corporations and government employees. This is same, the D.C. Code, and it's a definition section at the front again. It says, fourth, wherever the word executor is used, it shall include administrator and vice versa, unless such application of the term would be unreasonable. And so, again, this is how you defeat them, okay? They're all in dealing with dead things, sesticate trusts and executors, and so that's why they want to know your name. And when you go into their kangaroo court, and an executor is not responsible for anything, so be the executor. Again, this is D.C. Code, the Code of and this is Section 932 at 31 Stat 1341. Conduct of prosecutions for violations of municipal ordinances or regulations, and all penal statutes in the nature of police or municipal regulations where the maximum punishment is a fine only, or imprisonment not exceeding 1 year, shall be conducted in the name of the District of Columbia, and all others, okay, so more than a year, is done in the name of the United States. So a friend of mine, or somebody I know, was talked by the IRS out in Oregon. So, and they were saying it's United States, some U.S. district judge that went and authorized some arrest warrant. Well, that's D.C. that's doing that, boys and girls. This is Section 1563 at 31 Stat 1422. What can be set off? They're talking about debts or claims, and it's talking about dead things again. Probate law, testators, the intestate. This is all about dead things. This is D.C. Code deals with dead things, the Sesticate Trust. And this is Section 117 at 31 Stat 1208. And it talks about plenary jurisdiction is hereby given to the said court, holding special term to hear and determine all questions relative to the validity of any and all wills. Okay, so it's a military dictatorship, and they're dealing with dead things. And this is probate law. This is Section 139 at 31 Stat 1213. Again, it's talking about plenary proceedings. The court may, in all cases of controversy therein, direct a plenary proceeding to be had. And then in Section 146 at 31 Stat 1214, it says, talks about the sale of real estate. And the said court shall have plenary authority to administer also the real estate situated in the District of Columbia of decedents so far as may be necessary for the payment of debts and legacies. Again, this is all talking about plenary jurisdiction and probate law. This is all talking about dead things. And this is what you have to understand, as the D.C. Code is talking about dead things, cessesticate trusts, which is a probate law, and it's talking about dead things. And this is section 396 at 31 Stat 1252. Real estate, it shall be unlawful for any person not a citizen of the United States who has not lawfully declared his intention to become such a citizen, or for any corporation not created by or under the laws of the United States or some state or territory of the United States, to hereinafter acquire or own real estate or any interest therein in the District of Columbia. So why do you think that the bankster thieves want to have this little box that you got to check off when you apply for one of their so-called loans, that it says you're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien? And I mean, again, you know, think about it. You cannot, if you're anything but one of their slaves, you cannot own real estate in the District of Columbia. And the District of Columbia is everywhere if you're one of their U.S. citizen slaves. And they don't recognize state citizens. And how do you spell treason, okay, when some government official from the District of Columbia, like these border pigs, say that they don't recognize a state citizen? How do you spell treason, okay? Because that's what that is. That's a breach of trust. That's treason. And they engage in this stuff, you know, all the time. And you know, we the people are letting them get away with it. And this is D.C. Code again. What can be set off? Well, this is section 1563 at 31 Stat 1422. What can be set off? Well, the reason is because they're dealing with, and this was in 1901, they had U.S. Treasury notes. And so they're talking about setting off debts. And they've talked about, you go back before the Civil War even, they talk about set-offs. And so so they're talking here in particular about U.S. Treasury notes because Lincoln circulated $400 million worth of U.S. Treasury notes to finance the Civil War, and then subsequently we have these IOUs called Federal Reserve notes. This is section, same thing, the D.C. Code, 31 Stat 1208, section 117. Then in addition to jurisdiction concerning conferred by the preceding section, plenary jurisdiction, okay, military dictatorship, boys and girls, is hereby given to the said court holding a said special term to hear and determine all questions. And it talks about wills, okay. Again, they're talking about dead things. They're talking about dead things, about oh man, I'm trying to think of the terminology. It's about dead things. I'll think of it here in a minute. Anyways, and so then in D.C. Code, this is section 396 under Chapter 7, Aliens, at 31 Stat 1252. Real estate, it shall be unlawful for any person not a citizen of the United States who has not declared his intention to become a citizen, or for any corporation not created or under the laws of the United States or some state or territory of the United States, to hereafter acquire or own real estate or any interest in the District of Columbia. Now think about this. So they're talking about a citizen of the United States, and then they're talking about corporations created under the laws of the United States or any state or territory, okay? So a state citizen cannot own land in D.C., okay? Why do you think the bankster thieves want to see on their little application form, they have a little thing there that you're either a U.S. citizen or a resident alien? Because, again, this is all for aliens. This is all D.C. Code. That's exactly what it is. Now, it's interesting to note here that what this is I went and did a FOIA request with the Department of Homeland Security, and this was the letterhead that they sent it back on. And so what they're saying here is the Department of Homeland Security is a subsidiary of the United States Secret Service. And if you look at that corporate, that little star over in the corner over there, that's the United States Secret Service star. And this is their website, their Secretary Jay Johnson. And if you look at the highlighted area, he was a lawyer. He was a liar. No, I meant lawyer. No, actually, I meant liar. And he's also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Well, why is that surprising? With the Bilderbergers, he's probably going to the Bilderbergers and the Trilateral Commission meetings too. And so here we got someone that's a liar and a professional liar. And he served as a U.S. attorney. I mean, so this is the kind of people that they got running the Department of Homeland Security. So then if you think about it, the Department of Homeland Security is a subsidiary of the United States Secret Service. The United States Secret Service is a subsidiary of the Department of the Treasury. United States, Inc. has not had a treasury since 1921, and you can go look it up at 41 Stat, page 654. United States Department of the Treasury is owned by the International Monetary Fund. See these under these presidential documents, volume 29, number 4, page 113, and also at 22 USC 285 to 288. And then also see bankrupt corporate so-called governments video, and we're under martial law rule video. So, United States Department of Homeland Security is United Nations pigs, is what it is. This is all coming from the United Nations. The United States Secret Service are United Nations pigs. United States Department of the Treasury are United States pigs. Now, pig really is an acronym, and it stands for persons in government who intend to perjure their oaths, but these people aren't in government. Okay, these people are just pigs, and the reason I say that is that when they violate the Constitution, they cease to represent the government. There's a whole bunch of things going on here, and they're from the United Nations. They're foreign agents that Bush and Obama have brought into America. The Transportation Security Administration are United Nations pigs. We've been invaded by United Nations pigs. And the Constitution's a trust indenture. There's no such thing as the power of inherent sovereignty in the government of the United States. In this country, sovereignty resides in the people, and Congress can exercise no power by which they have not by their Constitution entrusted to it. All else is withheld. That's U.S. Supreme Court. Okay, so the Constitution is a trust indenture. Governments are but trustees. This is U.S. Supreme Court again. Governments are but trustees acting under derived authority and have no power to delegate what is not delegated to them. But the people, as the original fountain, might take away and what they've delegated and trust to whom they please. The sovereignty in every state resides in the people of the state. They may alter and change their form of government at their own pleasure. So again, what this is saying is that the government is a trust. It's a trust indenture. The Constitution is a trust indenture, and they have delegated powers. Okay, that's extremely important, because what is a delegated power? Think about that. The government of the United States is one of limited powers. It can exercise authority over no subjects except those which have been delegated. Congress cannot, by legislation, enlarge the federal jurisdiction, nor can it be enlarged under the treaty-making power. And that's Mayor of New Orleans versus United States. So that's also important about the treaty-making power. That was actually cited in a recent case, U.S. versus Bond, last summer. Now, some maxims of law. A delegate cannot delegate. An agent cannot delegate his functions to a subagent without knowledge or consent of the principal. The person to whom an office or duty is delegated cannot lawfully devolve the duty on another unless he be expressly authorized to do so. It's got to be in writing. A delegated power cannot be again delegated. A deputy cannot have or appoint a deputy. And so, help me out here. Is there anything in the Constitution that says anything about a corporation called United States? I mean, the courts are saying that the government's a trust, and so there's obviously a trust indenture, but where does it say anything about a corporation called United States? And so they went and set up a corporation in 1871 called United States, and that's what's talked about at 28 U.S.C. section 3002, because it says United States means a federal corporation, which means that that's the only one that they get set up. Actually, they probably set up several others since then. A federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States or an instrumentality of the United States. So now we're talking about, how about United States Department of the Treasury, okay? Or how about Department of Homeland Security? Where's the authority for that? Where does it say in the Constitution anything about United States Department of the Treasury or Department of Homeland Security or Secret Service or Immigration and Customs Enforcement or United States Border Patrol or Transportation Security Administration? I'm having trouble finding that in the Constitution anywhere that says they can do that. Ultra vires, an act performed without any authority to act on the subject. The term has a broad application, includes not only acts prohibited by the Charter, but acts which are in excess of powers granted and not prohibited, and generally applied either when a corporation has no power whatever to do an act. Act is ultra vires when corporation is without authority to perform it under any circumstances or for any purpose. Ultra vires act of municipality is one which is beyond powers conferred upon it by a law. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. These U.S. Department of Homeland Security thugs are using their Uniform Commercial Code to get you into one of their law merchant quasi-contracts, all of which is governed by the Unidroit Treaty, and all of which is unconstitutional. See the Unidroit video. And this is Bond versus United States. This is that case I was telling you about a minute ago, about that was issued last summer, last August. Anyways, today it is enough to highlight some of the structural and historical evidence suggesting that the treaty power can be used to arrange intercourse with other nations, but not to regulate purely domestic affairs. And this is that Mayor of New Orleans case again. It can exercise no power over authority over no subjects except those which have been delegated, and nor can it be enlarged under the treaty-making power. So that case cited that Mayor versus New Orleans. And they went and cited a bunch of stuff from the Federalist papers. And this is Madison insisted that just because this power is given to Congress, it did not follow the treaty power is absolute and unlimited. The President and Senate lacked the power to dismember the empire. For example, because the exercise of the power must be consistent with the object of the delegation. The object of treaties, in Madison's oft-repeated formulation, is the regulation of intercourse with foreign nations and is external. So they're using the treaty-making power internally, and they know they can't do that. The Unidroit Treaty regulates negotiable instruments. Gee, what do these kangaroo courts want? They insist on negotiable instruments to set off their excise tax. Civil procedure. That's rules of civil procedure, gee, and that's regulated by Unidroit. Secured transactions. They go and send their hired thugs out to assault you, and then they want a bond. Gee, that sounds like a secured transaction. Legal status of women. That's why they go on equally opportunities to assault women just like they do men. And so, they want to treat everybody the same. Contracts, okay? Well, and I've had these whores in federal courts, they like to do this, say that I'm proceeding in bad faith. Okay, well, gee, that's saying that there's a contract, and I don't want to go by the terms of their little contract. Well, I didn't consent to your little contract. What about the contract called oath of office, whore? Anyways, I am going off here. I hope nobody's offended. Banking law. This is another thing, the Unidroit Treaty. Go to their website and look at it. Banking law, insurance. You go and look at their website. It says that their edicts are automatically implemented. Insurance is all of these clerks masquerading as judges have errors and omissions insurance, and banking law again. They're getting paid with negotiable instruments, and there's a lot of reason to believe that they're all banks and they leverage the filing fees by 30 times. And which means that a $400 filing fee is worth $12,000 to the balance sheet of the so-called court. Anyways, this is unlawful arrest equals an assault. Okay, you got to think about this. The stopping of an automobile by a highway patrol officer for inspection of a driver's license or for any other purpose where it is accomplished by the authority of the officer is an arrest. I don't care what they call it. These hired thugs that they hire, these low intelligent thugs that go and assault you like this, they call it being detained, okay? But it's an assault, okay? If you're not free to go, it's an assault. It's an arrest. I'm sorry, it's an arrest. And I'm going to show you how it's an assault. This is another case. A motorist stopped by a traffic officer for a traffic offense would be considered arrested, even if the motorist was not specifically informed that he had been arrested. And this is another case. This is, I think, Arizona case, yeah. Any arrest, however slight, upon another's liberty to come and go as one please, constitutes an arrest. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Any restraint, however slight, upon another's liberty to come and go as one pleases, constitutes an arrest, okay? And so, again, these hired thugs want to call it, you're being detained. Well, you're arrested, okay? And so that's what it has to go to. And so then the question is it an unlawful arrest? And an illegal arrest is an assault and battery. The person so attempted to be restrained of his liberty has the right to use force in defending himself as he would in repelling any other assault and battery. And each person has the right to resist an unlawful arrest. In such case, the person attempting the arrest is in the position of a wrongdoer and may be resisted by the use of force as in self-defense. Okay, and so again, I'm not saying go out and use force to resist arrest for these border pigs, but you do have that ability, and that's essentially what I told the pigs, and they didn't like that at all. One may come to the aid of another being unlawfully arrested, just as he may where one is being assaulted, molested, raped, or kidnapped. Thus, it is not an offense to liberate one from the unlawful custody of an officer, even though he may have submitted to such custody without resistance. And this is a Canadian book called Police Manual of Arrest, Seizure, and Interrogation by this Sal Haney. He's a judge. Similarly, a person cannot be convicted of resisting a peace officer in the execution of his duty unless the officer was acting strictly within the limits of his powers and duties. If the officer makes an unlawful arrest, then there is a common law right to resist that arrest. And so you have the right to resist an unlawful arrest. And think about it. Do these border pigs have some sort of a warrant? Okay. Do they have some probable cause that you committed some crime? These Homeland Security pigs and their TSA pigs and their Secret Service handlers and their Treasury pig handlers and their IMF pig handlers have no authority whatsoever under any circumstances. These Homeland Security pigs work exclusively with hearsay evidence because they intend to assault you and kidnap you and falsely imprison you based on nothing more than hype and innuendo with no basis in truth or fact. And think about it. Your driver's license, they want a passport. Well, think about it. The passport has an image, okay? Any image is hearsay, okay? The name is spelt in all block capital letters, okay? That's the Sestakay Trust. That's the U.S. citizen. They know it's a fictitious entity, and so it's hearsay again. The birth date. Do you remember the birth date? I don't remember the day I was given birth. I don't know. Maybe you do. That's doing better than I am. Because I certainly don't remember, and so they want all this hearsay evidence. If these pigs stop you and you have not committed any crime, there's no lawful warrant, then it's an unlawful arrest. An unlawful arrest is a breach of the peace. Think about it. That's exactly what it is. They have breached the peace. They have assaulted you. These pigs breach the peace and assault people every day. When these D.C. Homeland Security border pigs stop you at their so-called border, it's an assault, it's kidnapping, and it's false imprisonment. When these D.C. Homeland Security border pigs at the so-called border force you to go anywhere before you can proceed on your way, it's kidnapping. When they say, go into the office, well, they just kidnapped you. I don't want to go into your office, pig. I want to go on my way. When these D.C. Homeland Security border pigs at the so-called border search your property, it's an unlawful and illegal search. When these D.C. Homeland Security border pigs at the so-called border will not let you proceed on your way, it's false imprisonment. That's exactly what it is. When these D.C. Homeland Security border pigs stop people traveling on I-10 in Texas and New Mexico, which they do it all the time, it's an assault. I was assaulted, kidnapped, and falsely imprisoned by these D.C. border pigs in Texas. And I went and filed a lawsuit, and their Cummings, the whore in the D.C. court in the Northern District of Texas, dismissed it because he obviously intended that his D.C. border pigs continue on with this stuff. And then what they did, this is officer safety, because I have the audacity of knowing the law and wanting to assert my rights, so the Texas DPS pigs went and sent out a threat to law enforcement. I'm a threat. I have never in my life breached the peace. These pigs are the ones that are breaching the peace every day just about, and I have never breached the peace, and yet they call me the threat. Anyways, let's look a little closer at this. This was issued on March 5th, 2014. That's when the Canada border pigs were holding their show trial. And that was see, what happened in the Canada border pigs case is I went in and I fired the clerk masquerading as a judge and walked out. And so the clerk issued a warrant, and so the show trial wasn't even over yet. And so it was, the show trial was over, started like on the 3rd, I think, or the 5th. Anyways, it went for 4 days. So it was another couple days before the show trial was over. It's like, all right, these Texas DPS pigs were so excited about it, they had to get this thing out as quick as possible, so their DC pig buddies could assault me some more if I happen to be coming across the border, or the so-called border. And so there we go. They got a picture of a truck. This is a officer safety threat to law enforcement. They want to justify their hired thugs to murder me, is what it is. And then on top of that, the D.C. Department of Homeland Security issued this threat assessment, initial notification of threat assessment. I'm the one that's the threat. These pigs are the ones that are the threat. These pigs are the ones that are the foreign agent. These pigs are the ones that have no authority whatsoever. The Texas DPS threat to law enforcement was done 2 days after the Canada border pigs started their show trial in their kangaroo court and it was before the show trial was even over. Conrad Rodriguez and his Texas DPS pigs and his DC US border pig buddies got their TSA pig buddies to send out their threat assessment because they intend to deny my right to pursue happiness by getting compensation for labor. They want to make sure I can't get a job. These DC, Texas DPS pigs and the DC US border pig buddies intend to murder me. Think about it. They want one of their low intelligent hired thugs to go out and murder me. And that's exactly what it is. I've never breached the peace. These pigs breach the peace every day. Conrad Rodriguez and his Texas DPS pigs and their DC border pig buddies are cowards because that's why they put it out to their law enforcement notice, so that one of their low intelligence hired thugs will murder me and justify it and get away with it. They deliberately screen out anybody with intelligence so they can facilitate the murder of anybody who thinks they have any rights, and their judicial whores, clerks masquerading as judges like Means, Cummings, and McBride help them. And there's actually a case, Jordan versus City of New London. Look it up. Went to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. It was case number 99-9188, where Jordan was a guy that had a master's degree, wanted to get a job with the City of New London Police Department, and they refused to hire him because he scored too high in the test. He was too smart. They didn't want anybody with intelligence. They wanted hired thugs. These DC border pigs are the terrorists, and this is taken from Funk and Wagnall's New Standard Dictionary, 1946, is a system of government that seeks to rule by intimidation. That's exactly what these DC pigs are doing. The so-called war on terror is their justification for a never-ending emergency so they can impose martial law rule, and this is Ex parte Milligan with Supreme Court. There's three kinds of martial law. There's full martial law, soldiers on the street, used only in a foreign country to put down an insurrection. Martial law proper is the law of the armed forces. Martial law rule is the law of necessity and emergency. And that's what we're on and have been for decades because of these DC pigs. We're under martial law rule video. See the We Are Under Martial Law Rule video. This is taken from Washington statutes. The legislature recognizes that on February 19, 1942, the President of the United States issued Executive Order 9066, which authorized military rule over civilian law and lives, okay? And this is Attorney General's position, the U.S. Attorney General, February 3rd, 1857. What is proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety in circumstances of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. But the Supreme Court has said that emergency doesn't create anything. And this is Home Building and Loan Association versus Blaisdell, 1934. Emergency does not create power. Emergency does not increase granted power, remove or diminish the restrictions imposed upon power, granted or reserved. The Constitution was adopted in a period of great emergency. Its grants of power to the federal government and its limitations of the power of the states were determined in the length of emergency, and they're not altered by emergency. So these pigs go ahead and use this emergency as justification to go ahead and assault people and kidnap people and falsely imprison people, and they can't do that. Well, who cares? They're a bunch of pigs. It's all coming from these UN pigs. The war on terror is fabricated to support a never-ending martial law rule. There's a Project Camelot YouTube channel that they interview this guy that was a military drone operator, and he was told to blow up friendly towns and villages in the Middle East with these cruise missiles, and he refused to do it. So they blackballed him. They did all sorts of stuff to him. And so again, this is all fabricated. They want this war. They're doing everything they can to make it. It's obvious. It's all over the place, and it's going to happen here pretty soon. See We're Under Martial Law Rule video. See Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments video. And this is the Texas DPS website. The director, Steve McGraw, and David Baker and Robert Bodish, they're all cowards. They don't want their face put up here. And they want to send their pig thugs out to assault people. This is Title 18, United States Code, Section 31. And it says that the term motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways and the transportation of passengers or property, or property or cargo. And it even defines what commercial purposes means: carrying of any persons or property for any fare, fee, rate, charge, or other consideration. So again, it's doing it for hire. Okay, if you're not doing it for hire, you don't have a motor vehicle. Well, what these thugs are doing is, because under the Federal Tax Lien Act, it defines a motor vehicle as a self-propelled vehicle which is registered, okay, in any state or foreign country. So they're using their revenue agents. They're collecting revenue for their bankster thieves and their United Nations and the International Monetary Fund thieves. And that's what this is all about. And they're converting a civil matter over to a criminal matter when they assault you. When acting to enforce a statute and subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administering or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, as an extension for the agency involved. That's what this show hearing in Canada with their Canada border pigs was all about. Think about it. It was the Customs Act. It was the Firearms Act. Okay? They don't have a shred of authority. It was a kangaroo court from the beginning. It was a clerk masquerading as a judge. It was nothing but a bunch of thieves. And this is Thompson versus Smith, citing some Supreme Court cases. Judges become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, or otherwise, as clerks involved in the agency. Okay, and that's anytime. Canada, U.S., this is a fundamental principle of law. It's an accepted rule not only in state courts, but in federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes, as a ministerial clerk for the agency. So, again, they want to make sure they have a good kangaroo court here. They want to railroad somebody, and they want to make some money and get their royalties and commissions. And this is all about D.C. citizens and their slaves. They want to regulate their slaves. Where any state proceeds against a private individual in a judicial form, it's well settled that state, county, municipality, etc. waives any immunity to counters, cross-claims, complaints by direct or collateral means regarding the matters involved. When enforcing mere statutes, judges of all courts do not act judicially and thus are not protected by qualified or limited immunity. They don't have a shred of immunity. These people are pigs. That's exactly what they are. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Okay, and again, so that means that they issue a warrant. Okay, the warrant is a nullity. It's a fraud. And so that means to all you peace officers, you need to be aware of this, because it depends on whether you want to be a peace officer or you want to be a hired thug. Okay, because no one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. And an officer who acts in violation of the Constitution ceases to represent the government. Okay, so these whores are not representing the government. They're on their own. They're a bunch of thieves and pirates. These border pigs are thieves and pirates. They're not representing the government. They're border pigs. They're not even a PIG, person in government who intends to perjure his oath. They're just pigs. See the peace officer and law enforcement officers video. These pigs do not represent our government. No corporation is standing to do anything to a living soul, and think about it. This liar, this bar member, goes in, like the one that's in charge of the Department of Homeland Security, goes in there and files this action, and the action says United States versus Joe Blow. Well, how can United States do anything? According to the Supreme Court, they can't. This is Rundle versus Delaware and Raritan Canal Company at 1852. My opinion is, and has long been, that the mayor and alderman of a city corporation, or the president and directors of a bank, or the president and directors of a railroad company, or other similar corporations are the true parties that can sue and are sued as trustees and representatives of the constantly changing stockholders. A corporation, therefore, being not a natural person but a mere creature of the mind, invisible and intangible, cannot be a citizen of a state or of the United States, and cannot fall within the terms or power of the above-mentioned article, and therefore neither plead nor be impleaded in the courts of the United States. And so that's what's going on, boys and girls. They don't have authority. That liar, that foreign agent of the Vatican, all bar members, watch my bar members video. This is what's going on, okay? They've seized control, these UN pigs. That's what's going on. That's exactly what's going on, and it's all going back to the Vatican. These so-called judge in Canada, that Derek Redmond, that pig, masquerading as a judge, it was a void judgment. He issued this so-called warrant when I walked out of his kangaroo court. The RCMP pig assaulted me in conspiracy with the U.S. consulate pigs in Calgary. Yes, I was at the U.S. consulate getting a U.S. passport, and the U.S. consulate pigs called the cops, and then they decided to take a nice long break so I'd be forced to stay there, make sure that the pigs had lots of time to get there. The U.S. border pigs at Roosevelt, Montana continued with assault when I crossed the so-called border to help their Canada border pigs because of what the Texas DPS pigs and the Canada border pigs had put in their computer system. Think about it. All computers have hearsay evidence. It's all hearsay. That's all they do. They are all United Nations pigs. That's exactly what's going on. They assault you to get their hearsay evidence so they can impose their slavery scam on you. All identification is full of hearsay evidence. The picture's an image, just hearsay. Name is hearsay. Do you know what your name is? I mean, somebody told you, didn't they? Gee, that sounds like hearsay. The birth date's hearsay. I don't remember the birth date. Do you remember the birth date? I don't. They unlawfully search your property and then force you into their kangaroo court before their clerk masquerading as a judge. Welcome to the New World Order and the tyranny of their military dictatorship. This is the same military dictatorship that precipitated the War of Independence. And this is taken from the Declaration of Independence. He's affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Gee, that sounds like what's going on. They all wear military uniforms. They have military rank insignia. He's combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. That's not a jury trial, that's a trial by jury. And there's a difference. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government. Gee, that sounds like a military dictatorship. and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Military dictatorship, boys and girls. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Military dictatorship, boys and girls. Look at the video about that I just did recently about all courts or ecclesiastical courts. They're making war on us. They have been for decades. For protecting them by a mock trial. This is taken on the causes and necessities for taking up arms. Statutes have been passed for extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits, for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of martial common law, and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. Military dictatorship, boys and girls. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. Military dictatorship, boys and girls. That's exactly what it is, and that's exactly what's happening now. The UN is here, and their military dictatorship is here. The War of Independence never did end. When I went and filed my first case to the U.S. Supreme Court, I said that, and the Department of so-called Justice, that was under Bush Jr., the pig, the Department of so-called Justice waived their right to respond. You know what happens when they waive their right to respond? When you make an allegation and they waive their right to respond, it means that they admit it. It's the truth. The War of Independence never did end. See the We Are Under Martial Law Rule video and the Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments video. You will never see justice at the hands of these judicial whores. See De Facto Courts video. And these DC border pigs are buying up billions of rounds of ammunition. It's all over the news. They're buying up armored vehicles and giving them to their code enforcers all over the country. It's all over the news. They've effectively nationalized the police forces. It seems that every night you see or hear about some Gestapo thug murdering somebody or assaulting somebody. They've already started their warfare against us. See the All Courts or Ecclesiastical Courts video. It's all over the news. Wake up and look what's going on. Everything done these days is in these de facto courts is under Roman civil law. Roman civil law is a subset of canon law. Canon law comes from the Vatican. The Vatican is satanic. That's where it's coming from. I shake the dust of the earth, mop my feet against Conrad Rodriguez, Steve McGraw, David Baker, Robert Bodish, and their Texas DPS pigs that are all DC citizens. I shake the dust off my feet against Janet Napolitano, Larry Overcast, Barack Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, George Bush Jr., John Boner, Harry Reid, John McBride, Terry Means, Sam Cummings, John Roberts, Neil Wake, Stephen McNamee, and their United Nations DC U.S. border pigs who are all DC U.S. citizens. I shake the dust of the earth, mop my feet against John Rook, Bill Tillman, Derek Redmond, Hironaka, Jerry Selk, Robert Nicholson, Stephen Harper, Elizabeth Windsor, that bitch, David Johnston, Larry Ethel, Stephen Blaney, Barry Benkendorf, Alex Bernard, Peter McKay, and the UN Canada border pigs. Technical remote viewers. The U.S. Army did this program for over 20 years. It was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, that's how we knew what was going on in the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, they canceled the program. And so all those technical remote viewers went into private business. What they would do is they'd put you in a room, in a cubicle. They'd give you a sealed envelope with a piece of paper inside with coordinates somewhere on the face of the planet. And you had to describe what was going on in their coordinates. And they got it down to where it was about 80% accurate. And I've seen some of their training videos. They analyze it to death. It's very interesting. Anyways, you can remote view any point in space and time. They say there's a giant library on the fabric of space-time, which everything that is ever done is recorded. And so all of you peace officers out there, you need to know that you're not going to get away with anything, okay? That that if you're operating as a peace officer, that's fine. That's what you should be doing. But when you start operating as a law enforcement officer, as one of their code enforcers, and you start assaulting people and kidnapping people and murdering people, you're going to be held accountable, okay? All of that's recorded on the fabric of space-time. And Judgment Day's coming for all of us. And that's why I shake the dust of the earth off my feet against these Canada border pigs and these UN border pigs in the US and the UN border pigs in Canada. And Judgment Day's coming. There's no doubt in my mind. And I am looking forward to it. I'm going to be there. And anybody that's watching this video, you need to know that it's recorded. And there's nothing that will ever make it go away. And so we are all going to have to face that Judgment Day, and we're all going to be held accountable for our actions. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Judgment Day. Some other videos that you might want to look at is a de facto courts video, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bankster thieves 1, 2, and 3, bar members 1 and 2, we're under martial law rule, quasi-contracts and Roman civil law, peace officers and law enforcement officers, all courts are ecclesiastical courts, Unidroit, DC courts in Texas. Some upcoming events, common law, void judgments, color of law, de jure government, the ultimate solution, how to do a habeas corpus. The District of Columbia is masquerading as the government of the United States of America, churchianity of the Vatican, churchianity in the Mormons, pigs in Texas. When injustice becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group called at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for donation. You can download a lot of them off of YouTube for free. But if you want all of them, you know, I got to have a donation of some sort. Donations to support this work are appreciated, and the preferred method is gold or silver coin, but I'll accept negotiable instruments since the bankster thieves are out there in full force. Banknotes, money orders, checks, PayPal, etc. As an extremely less desirable alternative, send me an email for particulars and send an email for other copies of other documents to Engineer Win. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I hope you got something out of it, and please spread this around. They're probably going to be taking this kind of stuff down before too long, or at some point, these with their military dictatorship. You can see what's going on. They're just gradually consolidating their power, and all you sheeple out here are completely asleep at the wheel. So anyways, I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. I hope you get something out of it. Please circulate it around.